as well. And John McClain, Hall of Fame writer and columnist, joins us. Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. John, Jalen Petrie, Houston Texans, we could see it happening, and it did. Your thoughts about the reaction from the Texans and also the reaction from you?
After being coached by Dave Aranda, he's going to love being coached by Lovie Smith. As you know, Lovie's defense is all predicated on playing a lot of zone, looking at the ball, forcing turnovers. They did a great job of that last year. But I'll guarantee you they're not going to play Petrie back in too deep coverage. He's going to be around the line of scrimmage as he was at Baylor. He'll cover slot receivers. He'll have a chance for tackles for loss, blitzes. The good thing about him, and I didn't see every game like you guys did in person, but I saw almost all of them on TV and a few in person. And one of the things that everybody likes about him is how smart he is, how quick he diagnoses things. And I predicted today on my talk show here, by his second year, he would be one of the captains. And the talk show guys are like, oh, my God. And I didn't point out, second year, he'll be one of the veterans, the way they've been changing players on this team. So they're going to like him. His teammates are going to like him, as you guys know. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he's not in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. Usually that goes to a guy with a lot of sacks. And I expect, like he did at Baylor, he'll have a lot of tackles for loss, 2 or 3 interceptions, a few sacks. And I think it was a great pick. And as I tell everybody, of course I'm partial to Baylor, but I know what a good prospect he was. If he was 6'1", and 210, he would have been a mid-first round pick.
Before him, Derek Stingley and Kenyon Green. After him, Dameon Pierce. This is, there was not a tall mountain to climb considering they haven't had draft picks for several drafts, but this is the most productive, at least on paper, Texans draft in a long time. John, your thought about their entire haul?
It's the first time I've given the Texans an A ever. I don't remember giving the Oilers too many A's, but when you have 2 first-round picks and you take a corner, if he stays healthy, he can be a perennial Pro Bowler. And they needed a really physical guard. And that's what Kenyon Green was. The Aggies played him all over the line. Texans will put him at left guard next to Laramie Tunsil, and he'll have a chance to kick some butt in the running game. And Pierce, you're talking about a guy in a good position to succeed. Texans had the worst running game in the NFL, the worst in franchise history. The year before, they were 31st. They made significant changes up front. His only competition is Marlon Mack, a free agent from Indy, and Rex Burkhead, who should be the third back. So that guy's got a chance to help. And John Mechie, the receiver from Alabama, is coming off the torn ACL. I look about midway through the season to see him in the slot between Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins, third-round pick last year. So their offense, which was awful, should be substantially better as long as Davis Mills makes the kind of improvement that they expect him to make.
John, I'll go ahead and get another Baylor question out of the way so we can talk about like that wild first round and some other things. But the Texans also signed Drew Estrada, who was just at Baylor for a year but was productive as an undrafted free agent. I know that the road is tough to climb for those guys, but 6 picks for the Bears. I mean, Tyquan Thornton jumps up to number 50 with the Patriots. He had 2 second-rounders, 2 third-rounders, and then a couple stragglers there at the end to make it 6, and then a bunch of undrafted free agents as well. I mean, obviously things are going well in Waco, but have you ever really kind of seen a haul like that for the Bears?
Have the Longhorns had anybody drafted yet?
Not yet. I think they might have a pick coming up here pretty soon.
I think they're on like round 24.
Yeah.
Maybe the Longhorns will have somebody. I love being able to say that 2 times in 7 years. I had a friend of mine, a longtime columnist in Boston, call me today and want a rundown on Thornton and Bernard. And I said I was in shock that Thornton was drafted in the 2nd round because I thought he'd go in like the 4th round, even though he's the fastest receiver in the draft, and that is a great deal for him. And I gave him a rundown, and I told him they're going to like Bernard. If he stays healthy, I think he'll be a great contributor on special teams, get playing time this season, could be a starter next season. But I'm sure you guys weren't expecting Thornton to go in the 2nd round either. But that's great for Baylor. When you see Thornton and Petrie going in the second round, and I think it's great. Baylor got a lot of attention before, during, and after the draft.
Yeah, they really did. And every one of them a neat story, because none of those guys, I'm not saying none, but a lot of them were guys that were that came either right at the end of the Art Briles regime or Matt Rule, obviously Dave Aranda, and they all just seemed to be great stories. That they overcame not being 4- and 5-star players. They overcame changing positions. They overcame bad years. And I just can't imagine. They got to be tough, ready for whatever faces them. Whether they can make the league or not remains to be seen.
They're mentally tough. They also have different position coaches, different systems. That'll make it easier for them to adjust. I remember when Petrie was the only commitment who stayed, didn't do much right at first. In the last 2 years, of course, he blossomed into a big-time NFL prospect. And, of course, being from Houston, people are so excited. His family's excited. He was excited. And I think he'll be a day-one starter. And as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be around for a long time and be a real asset to the organization.
Did you have any idea you only lived 10 minutes away from NRG? That was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, actually, Stafford is one of our suburbs, and he was so excited. The first 2 picks, let me just say, Derek Stingley Jr. and Kenyon Green were not the best talkers in the world, and then they put Petrie out there, and he blew everybody away with his personality. And I asked him right off the bat, why did you stay at Baylor when all the other commits left? And he gave a really good answer about Baylor, the school, the people, the thing about, he credited God. He said all the right things about staying, and it certainly paid off for him because he's making good money. And if he stays healthy and plays well, after 3 years, he'll get a humongous contract.
John, what did you think of the chaos of all the wide receivers and A.J. Brown getting traded to the Eagles and Marquise Brown going to the Cardinals and all that happened?
I thought Marquise Brown being traded from the Ravens to the Cardinals is because they needed speed to replace Christian Kirk. But DeAndre Hopkins has never been fast. That's why the Texans got him 27th in the first round, because he ran like a 4.7. But it's obvious they knew he was being suspended. It was held till after the draft because they knew it was going to get a lot of negative publicity around the league. He'll come back stronger than ever. In all his years with the Texans, he only missed 2 games because of injuries and could have played in one of them. Said he would have played with a broken bone in his arm if the game meant anything at the end of the 2017 season. Brown was a shocker. Every team in the AFC South stood up and cheered, especially the Texans. Brown had burned them so bad ever since he came into the league. It's amazing right now, Paul, if you think about, some teams have no reservations about taking wide receivers and giving them monster contracts, while others say, nope, we can get young guys, keep them, develop them, and spend that money on other positions. And I can't wait to see how this turns out for Devontae Adams, for Tyreek Hill, for A.J. Brown. Hollywood Brown had 91 catches last year with Lamar Jackson missing half the year, and yet he wasn't happy in that offense. So maybe he'll be happy playing with Kyler Murray, but I've never seen anything like it. The receivers are such divas today, most of them, but they're getting what they want.
You know, what's interesting is that, you have these guys that in this day and age, they usually get what they want. It's always about the money, as you mentioned, but some of them are saying this and that. And hell, some NFL franchises said, screw you, we're sending you somewhere else. Whether they made enough back in return collateral-wise remains to be seen, but I guess in a way, I kind of like it. You don't want to be here. You don't think we're doing well enough? Bye. Although Hollywood Brown got $100 million or whoever it was pretty quickly.
A.J. Brown got $25 million a year. He wanted 22 from the Titans. They said, we're not going to do it. And they took Treylon Burks, a similar receiving prospect from Arkansas. But in about 2-3 years, we'll look back and see how it worked. Now, the question is, will Deebo Samuel be next?
John, what did you think of this crop of quarterbacks that, man, we saw, Kenny Pickett in the first round, and then it was quite a wait after that?
Craig, right after the season, before the All-Star games and before the combine and the pro days and the private workouts, everybody says a mediocre quarterback draft. None may go in the first round, but some teams will reach. And then when they started working out shorts and T-shirts and throwing against air, everybody was like oohing and ahhing at Malik Willis's arm and some of the passes he completed at the combine when nobody was rushing him or covering the receivers. And then they all must have gone back and looked at the tape and came to their senses. So getting guys like Sam Howell in the 5th round, Ritter and Corral and Willis in the 3rd round, those are great value picks. There's no pressure on them at all when they're in that situation. I think Willis to the Titans, give him a year behind Tannehill. He could be their starter in 2023, and then they'd be able to get out from under Tannehill's contract. He's got the highest cap figure in the NFL.
John, the Cowboys offseason has been very uneventful. The draft didn't go how a lot of fans wanted to go. I mean, and Tyler Smith turned out to be a road grader there at guard. But what do you think is going on in Dallas with the perception of their team from their perspective as opposed to the rest of the league? Because on paper, they're not better than they were at 12-5 right now last year.
Well, they don't have contract problems. They don't have a quarterback coming off a season-ending injury. It seems most of the excitement comes from Jerry and his daughter, the new daughter, and how that's going to play out. And I kind of think that's good, but they have invested so much in offensive linemen. And what has it got him? I remember one time Al Davis, we were at a league meeting, and he and I were talking about the old AFL days, and he said, I never pass up a player who can score touchdowns or throw touchdowns. Give me the guys who can put it in the end zone first, and we'll fill in on the other positions. And I think that was a philosophy that you don't see much anymore. Everybody wants to build their offensive line to protect the quarterback and try to have a decent running game. But Cowboys, I don't know if any team has invested in offensive linemen as much as they have going over the last, back over the last 10 years.
John, thank you. And you wonder about during that time, I know Travis Frederick's career ended early, but you have a Hall of Famer in Zach Martin, a Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith, and then you look up, they've had some years that were pretty good, but nothing really other than that to show for it. And you wonder if they've lost that window with such great players up front on the offensive line. All right, John, thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Sick 'em.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist with us every Tuesday at around 5:30. When we come back, Paul Catalina will wrap up